Hey y'all, so welcome to another Swift and Air post-game show. So I know it's a bit late on this one as the Bucs defeated the Atlanta Falcons 21-15 at the 1 o'clock games, which ended around 4 o'clock ish. I was driving back from the Tampa area back to my school here at FSU Tallahassee. Um, it was, from what I heard, it was an interesting game, and I watched the highlights and studied it a bit, and it looked like a very um, it's tough to go into because it's hard to judge because this Falcons team has held a lot of teams to a T, like the Rams, for example. They also held the Saints pretty well. I mean, they choked it away, but they made it a game for sure. But yeah, the Buccaneers were up 21-0 by the fourth quarter, and they ended up coming back and making it 21-7, and then they scored a touchdown and a 2 point conversion to make it a 6 point game. So it was 21-15, and then we finally got the ball back to try and wind down the clock with about 4 minutes or so to go. And classic Brady trying to run the clock down, as you know they do. But for this one, it got a little sketchy for a lot of it. So, there was some weird penalties and non-calls that were going on. So there was a holding on Evans on a third down that was called, where it was definitely a very debatable call. And then after that, there was a no call on a potential DPI call on Scotty Miller, where the defender was kind of pushing him out of bounds. Even though someone argued that it wasn't a catchable ball, Scotty Miller did catch it out of bounds. So it's hard to tell. But one thing's for certain, the play that ended the game was a third down sack by the Falcons, except it was called roughing the passer, I guess because it was a particularly violent sack. But all they did was just pick Brady up and fling him around, and they called that roughing the passer. And that's one of the worst that's one of the worst calls that I've seen, in my personal opinion. It's up there with the Saints no call against the Rams, or the Bert Emanuel catch, or all those calls that should have been but weren't. But a lot of people are saying that it's a makeup call for that PI call that should have been called. But yeah, I mean, we shouldn't have been in this situation to begin with. The fact that we are in that rut at all against the Falcons shows that we really need to work on a lot of stuff. And that's just my personal two cents on this. I mean, of course, you have good teams that you almost, or bad teams you almost lose to. Take, for example, the Jets last year, or with the Bucs, or the Giants 2 years ago with the Bucs. So even if you were to say, well, the Bucs weren't as good against the Jets as they were in 2020. Well, in 2020 they had close games against bad teams too. Okay, I mean, they almost lost to the football team in the playoffs as well, which they gave them the biggest run for their money in that run. But I don't know, man. I'm calling it like I see it. That was really bad, a really bad call. As a Bucs fan, that was a very bad call. But I mean, all I can do is just we can take the win. I mean, it kind of sucks, but maybe the Falcons would have blew it. Maybe they wouldn't have, but they should have had that chance. So that roughing the passer call was ridiculous. But It is what it is. Other than that, Fournette looked really good for the first time in a while. He got 2 touchdowns, one of them rushing, which is our first rushing touchdown of the year, so that's cool. Evans did pretty well. Cade Otton came out and was doing really, really well for his job. He was starting to look like an actually decent tight end for Brady, so hopefully that will continue when we go to Pittsburgh next week, along with Fournette. Brady overall, I think he looked pretty good, and our defense was stellar per usual, aside from giving the Falcons some points, but I mean, you can't expect a shutout all the time, and we shouldn't have been in a position to lose that game to begin with. The offense should have scored more than 21 points, but it is what it is. So against the Steelers, they have a good defense. Their offense is not good, so I expect to see something like the Saints game, the Green Bay game, the Dallas game, something like that. I expect that we win because Pittsburgh's a 1-4 team. But just say what you think will happen in the next one. But until then, Bucs up.